Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And this is episode 4 of the Ultimate Fighter season 27, Undefeated. This is coming in a week late. I actually haven't watched this episode yet. I'm just watching it now, getting caught up on the Ultimate Fighter. Season 5 just came out, so I'll probably be releasing these on the same day, back to back. But with that being said, I do plan on getting caught up. This episode was actually really good, surprisingly. This season is a little slow, I've got to admit, you know, just because you're not expecting. Now there was some drama in this episode and a good fight. I mean, you can't always expect a good fight in the show, but I mean, we've seen some good fights so far. But also, as far as the rest of the show is concerned, even if you're expecting a good fight, you can't expect, like, you know, any craziness to happen. You know, you're not expecting anything off the walls that makes you go, yo, I gotta watch this, what's gonna happen this week? So with that being said, what we did find out early in this show is Daniel Cormier had personal obligations, so Cain Velasquez was going to be taking over as the head coach of Team DC. But DC had full belief in his teammate Cain Velasquez's coaching abilities. But if you've been watching the show, you know Daniel Cormier is a hell of a coach. So my first thoughts immediately were, yo, I wonder if, you know, Team DC is about to take their first L because now their coach is gone. And so that's one of the things that I was thinking. And then it showed from last week, if you recall, Violent Bob Ross picked up a W and advanced to the semifinals. But it showed that he actually got pretty injured in his last fight, and he revealed that he hurt his foot kicking his opponent in the head, and he said he's never had to fight this quick of a turnaround with an injury. So it was looking pretty grim for Bob Ross as far as his next fight was concerned. Then we had a cut scene, or a segment of the show where we talked about Team Stipe's Jay Cuccinello, who's going to be fighting this episode. And he said he's going in here to put people away and get a win for Team Stipe. He recognized they were down 0-3 at that point. He showed that he's currently 8-0 as a professional. He said he likes to go forward, and his boxing plays a big part of his fighting style. And also that they revealed his little brother passed away the day before his 5th pro fight. He still ended up getting a win, and he said he believes he's mentally prepared for pretty much anything that comes his way. Then we had a segment where we were showing Jay Cuccinello, his opponent for this episode was going to be Bryce Mitchell. This guy was fucking Johnny Archer. He went outside to the backyard. There were some trees and such. Started making a damn bow and arrow in the backyard from scratch with branches. Had a knife, had some fire. He was doing all type of dwiddling and shit with the wood. Fucking Johnny Woodworks, and he ended up making a nice ass bow and arrow. And he actually had a string he attached to it, made some arrows, and showed off some of his archery skills. Fucking actually hit, you know, he had some nice skills with the archery. So he made that out of nowhere. Fucking was hitting shit with this shot. Fucking Johnny Archer over here, he was looking solid, and that's Bryce Mitchell. So he was going to be fighting for Team DC. He's going to be fighting Jay Cuccinello. Now Bryce Mitchell's nickname is actually Thug Nasty, so you might seem country or like a hillbilly or whatever, or a hunter, but at the same time he referred like to himself as a hood rat in the show and other like little hood references, but he had a very country accent. So he's really touching all bases. He said he came up in like backyard fighting style, like backyard boxing with guys like twice his size, and then he eventually transitioned to actual MMA, and now he's undefeated. Reminded me of, you know, Jorge Masvidal's humble beginnings. He used to fight in those Kimbo backyard brawls, you know, in the backyard or in the street, but actual fights, bigger dudes. And you know, now Jorge Masvidal, he's a big fan favorite from those humble beginnings. So yeah, so Johnny fucking Archer, Bryce Mitchell, he was very entertaining, very much a character, very young in his game as well. I believe he was only 22 years old. Next, we go back to Jay Cuccinello, and he was telling the house about some of his stories from his tenure over in Afghanistan. He's talked about at one point where like he was with his crew on 2 separate occasions in vehicles were hit with IEDs. He said they like flipped or like, you know, explosions. Clearly they didn't die, but you know, he said he has some pretty fucking rad stories from Afghanistan. And he also lost his mother, I believe, at 5 years old, on top of losing his brother unexpectedly before that 5th fight. We saw some clips of him training some solid jiu-jitsu, locking up an armbar, and also, you know, they introduced her to his girlfriend a little bit as well. Then we go back to Bryce Mitchell, Johnny Archer, fucking Johnny Woodworks, and he said that he had a badass dream, right? He was sitting with Team DC, and he said, yeah, guys, I had a badass dream last night. And he said, man, I was just walking through the woods, and there was like 20 squirrels, and then a baby deer came out of nowhere, and I just tackled it and started taking pictures with it and petting it. Someone was like, you said you had a badass dream. That is not what I expected. Like, you know, you probably expected something to do with some females, some type of party, some type of or something wild, some type of sci-fi shit. But no, this dude said, I fucking tackled a deer, started taking selfies with it. That was his badass dream. That was pretty hilarious from Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell. He said, though, he feels good about the fight, even with DC being gone. He said if he loses, it's not going to be because DC's gone. He feels ready. So, no excuses coming from Bryce Mitchell. That's pretty dope because even though he's saying that, I don't know how confident I can be in that, because that's how honestly I was feeling during the episode, because Daniel Cormier is shown to be a great coach. He seems to give great advice. He's a great motivator. So even, you know, he might feel confident, Bryce, but at the same time, I was still a little skeptical. Like, man, if he gets a loss, it could very well be because DC's gone. So then he continued to talk about his fighting style. He said he has a little bit of a ghetto fighting style. That was another one of those ghetto references. Like, he said he has a ghetto fighting style, called himself a hood rat at one point, so I thought that was pretty funny. He said he had 5 belts in MMA. 3 of them were amateur, 2 of them were pros. We saw some clips of Bryce dominating fights with his grappling. He looked to be very well rounded, and then when he won his fight, it reminded me his name was Thug Nasty, which was, you know, pretty funny, because this dude's fucking Johnny Woodworks, Johnny Archer, country accent, dreaming about fucking squirrels and selfies with baby deers, but he refers to himself as a hood rat. His nickname is Thug Nasty. So very interesting character and personality we got here. And one of his teammates said he actually reminded him of a country Diaz brother. Now what's funny is we had Jason Knight in the UFC. He's already called Hick Diaz. But maybe we're going to have to make room for a new Hick Diaz if this guy continues to go undefeated or wins this episode and continues to win the rest of the show. But, so next we have a segment where we see an update on the Violent Bob Ross. His foot injury, he got it checked out from the doctor. He said it may be fractured and he recommended an x-ray. Violent Bob Ross was brought to tears because he may have lost his opportunity to win the Ultimate Fighter show and get his shot in the UFC. They go to the doctor and they reveal there's an actual fracture and he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And if you saw his foot, man, it looked pretty bad, pretty swollen. So, yeah, he probably wasn't going to be able to continue on the show for sure anyways. He was very, you know, even if it wasn't a fracture, is what I'm saying. But then he continued. Violent Bob Ross was very emotional. He was like sobbing, crying, you know, but he had a FaceTime with Daniel Cormier. He told him, man, it's okay to cry. Don't worry. You're going to get better from this. And Violent Bob Ross, like, got his head back. Like, he immediately got straight after that pep talk from DC, and he came in the house for a meeting with Team DC after that, bro. Violent Bob Ross came in there with a fucking purpose. He's like, come on, Team DC. Everybody, meet me in the backyard. You know, calls a fucking huddle, like a football huddle. You know, we're down and out, even though they're up 3-0. He calls the huddle. He's like, guys, I want you to see this injury, and I want you to make you work that much harder every practice. And give, you know, he gave one of the best pep talks they probably ever had in a while. And that really reminded me of DC's coaching, you know, that DC not being there, because I told you, he already seemed like a great coach. And then he was able to snap the emotional Bob Ross out of it, unlike anybody else. Other teammates had approached Violent Bob Ross when he was crying and down. Nobody got him to fucking snap out of it and go give a damn hell of a pep talk like Daniel Cormier. So it made me worry a little bit for Thug Nasty as well, because like Team DC's not there. We just saw his, you know, his motivation again shining. So, but with that being said, it was about fight time. One of the fighters one thing that was pointed out though is since Violent Bob Ross was injured and now he's out of the show, one of the fighters from Team Stipe gets to come back to the show. So even though they lost, they're going to get an opportunity. But with that being said, doesn't mean much for Team Stipe. That's a guy that's already lost. So I mean, he gets another opportunity. It would be crazy if he was able to come back and win, but it wasn't revealed who it was yet in this episode. But now it's fight time. Ended up being a good fight for Bryce Mitchell. I mean, the very beginning of the first round, like the first minute of the fight, was just a good fight, back and forth striking exchange, and it looked really good, both fighters. But Bryce Mitchell shortly took over after landed a couple big head kicks in the first round and a couple punches followed him up, some nice combinations. Like he went with like a head kick, and then he fucking immediately followed it with a punch, and then he immediately followed it with a takedown. And that was really the beginning of the end from there for Jay Cuccinello, because Bryce Mitchell, Thug Nasty, was able to control the fight with his grappling for a majority of the first round. After a minute of the first round was over, the couple of the fights, the time stood back up. It seemed like Thug Nasty was getting the better of the striking exchanges before taking him back down. And so with that being said, the second round started and it was a lot more the same, but the takedown came a lot earlier. Bryce Mitchell got the takedown in like under 30 seconds it seemed, and he controlled the fight for the entire round. He had the body lock in. Jay Cuccinello didn't really seem like he was defending the body lock very well, the body triangle, because he wasn't turning with Bryce Mitchell's foot to the mat. He was just kind of leaving it in the air, so he was stuck in that body triangle for maybe 4 minutes, 3 minutes of that second round. But even when he wasn't in the body triangle, Bryce Mitchell probably had him mounted and was just controlling the fight with ground and pound and submission attempts, and just ended up winning like a 10-7 or a 10-8 round in that second round. So Bryce Mitchell definitely won the decision there. Team DC went to 4-0 after that fight. Looks like they didn't actually need Daniel Cormier present in their cage side to win the fight. Which was good because, like I said, Team DC seems like a great coach, great motivator, so I was a little worried for a second, but Thug Nasty got the job done for Team DC. Dana White approached the Violent Bob Ross after the fight. He was talking to him about the injury. He was like, yo man, sorry about that injury. Bob Ross was like telling Dana White, like pitching it to him, like, he said, man, every one of those fighters, when they saw how bad my leg was injured, they let out a sigh of relief because they knew I was going to win the show. And he just let Dana White know, that he wanted a shot to prove that he could still fight in the UFC. Dana White said, let him know, hey, don't worry, man, we liked what we saw. You're going to get a shot in the finale. So Violent Bob Ross won't be able to be the Ultimate Fighter, but he's still probably going to get a shot in the UFC, which is dope to see. Now, at the end of the episode, we saw fucking Loudmouth Dulaney, the fight guy, talking mad shit, bro. I was thinking he's got to be trolling because he was talking trash. He said the whole Team DC's broke and their coaches are broke and he'll beat any of the featherweights on the team. And I was thinking, like, okay, all of it's fair game talking trash to the fighters, but whenever he said something about the coaches being broke, I was like, hell no, how you gonna disrespect the coaches? Even if you might have fucking got a lump sum or hit the lottery or did something to earn a lot of money, Mr. Dulaney, the fight god, doesn't mean you stunt on coaches who are training people to be fighters, because if you're saying their coaches are broke, what is that about the people who train you? I'm sure you've got coaches as well. So, I mean, even if it's not your coaches, like, people around you are broker than you. So, you know what I'm saying? So, the fact that he was stunting on coaches really seemed like it crossed the line a little bit to me. He was talking about how much his watch was worth and all of that shit. So, Dana White actually had to step in because Team DC was getting a little heated. Like, fucking, somebody was getting in Dulaney's face like, man, yo, you ain't just gonna be talking all that shit while we're all right here. Yet you could imagine some fucking fighters in a room and somebody's talking like a loudmouth, talking about people being broke. So somebody stood up to him. Dana White had to separate that shit. Stipe afterward got his team into the locker room, and Dulaney is on Team Stipe, who's down 0-4. So Team DC felt like he might have been being a little bit of a sore loser there. But Stipe Miocic actually gave a pep talk in the locker room afterward. But I've got to admit, it wasn't as good as the Violent Bob Ross's pep talk. But either way, next we see Stipe picks who's going to be fighting, and it's going to be Mike Trizano from Team Stipe fighting Thailand Clark from Team DC. Now, Thailand Clark is a guy that I actually know someone that trains with him. He fights out of Kansas, so I'm low-key rooting for him just because I know somebody that knows him, which I feel like is pretty cool. So with that being said, it is what it is about the full-time thing. You know what you think in the comments. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOG.